Hello, my name is Steve Touchton, National Sales Manager for Weiss Fire and Safety, Draft Commander. And today I have with me Jim Gile from the Castle Rock Fire and Rescue Department. Jim, welcome.
Thank you, Steve. Good to be here.
Can you tell me what led to the purchase of a Draft Commander?
I was brought on to Castle Rock Fire Rescue 4 years ago to begin a fleet program, an EVT program for Castle Rock Fire. Before that, Castle Rock did not have their own fleet maintenance. We farmed that off to another fire district that did maintenance for surrounding fire departments. So I was brought on about 4 years ago in order to start a program. In my mind, one of the great benefits of having your own EVT and your own people pump testing your trucks is from year to year, you know what those trucks are doing. You can identify any problems that might be happening or any maintenance issues that are coming up if you're pumping that truck yourself. So that's one of the reasons that steered us toward the Draft Commander. I was familiar with it because we had one where I had come from. And quite honestly, I've pumped on everything from in-ground pits to out of a lake, if that's what's needed. Those do get the job done, but the Draft Commander helps us get it done obviously more efficiently and in a timelier manner.
When you decided on getting the Draft Commander, how did you sell the Draft Commander to the superiors there at Castle Rock?
Well, obviously, like any fire department, any municipality, we have a budget process to go through. And so as I began to write a proposal in order to present that to my direct supervisor, who at the time was the operations chief, I put together some numbers. That particular year, the following year, we would have, I believe it was 5 apparatus that we were receiving as new apparatus. So not only were we doing annual testing, our annual pump testing, but we were also doing acceptance testing on those 5 apparatus, which extends the time, obviously, of that pump test. So as I was putting together the proposal, which obviously is not cheap, right? It's an investment in your fleet maintenance program. Really, is what a Draft Commander is. So as I was putting together that budget proposal, I put together the figures, and like I said, that following year, if we were to use the Draft Commander, we were going to save or recycle in the neighborhood of 3.5 million gallons of water, which is a significant amount. If you don't know, here in Colorado, on the Front Range of Colorado, we not only have elevation to deal with, but we have desert to deal with as well. Essentially, we're high mountain desert is what we are. We don't have a lot of water. So unfortunately, if we waste water, if it runs out onto the ground, it's gone. We don't get it back. That 3.5 million gallons was significant, and I put that in the proposal as that went to my operations chief, and then from him up to the fire chief. Of course, the next steps after that would have been to our town finance department, and then ultimately, in the end, to town council in order to get approved for that purchase or not. I put that proposal together and sent it through the chains of our command, and for a few weeks didn't hear anything about it. So didn't know if it was good or if it was bad or what was taking place. A couple of weeks after that, the fire chief showed up in my office one day and told me that he liked the proposal, he liked what I did and how I'd put it together, and then it made a lot of sense. He said, but he had one problem with it, that the figures weren't right. And so I asked him, well, what do you mean, Chief? Help me understand how are the figures not correct? And he says, well, 3.5 million gallons of water, there's no way that that's accurate. And so we sat down together and I showed him how I come to those figures, which is fairly simple. Just as an example, if you have a 1500 GPM rated pump and you do that for your annual test, you come to about 57,000 gallons of water that you've pumped for that annual pump test. And so when you add that all up, especially with acceptance tests, which turn out to be a 3-hour in total, it came to 3.5 million gallons of water. So after we discussed that, he saw where the figures came from. He kind of shrugged his shoulders and said, "Yep, looks good to me." And that went through the budget process, went through finance, got approved by town council, and so we were approved at the end of 2017 to purchase our draft commander. And so we did that, and we took delivery in early 2018 of our draft commander. So that's kind of how we pitched it, and how the story of our draft commander came to be.
That's amazing. Many fire departments across the country continuously buy apparatus. So, like you, that particular year, you had 5 new apparatus coming in, but it doesn't stop. I mean, every couple of years, you're always replacing a piece of equipment. You're going to be doing those acceptance tests on that equipment as well as your annual test. So that 3.5 million gallons for that particular time, that could be an ongoing thing. And this is year over year of water savings, and that adds up. 3.5 million gallons every year you're pulling out of the aquifer. And you're right, you don't get that back. Have you used the draft commander for training purposes?
Yeah, we have. And again, like I said, I was familiar with draft commander coming from my old department. And we did the same up there. We used the draft commander not only for our maintenance purposes, right, for annual pump testing, for acceptance testing, for testing after a repair of some sort, but we did also use it for training. One of the things that we have here in Colorado is the Colorado Emergency Vehicle Technicians Association, and that's a regional resource of training for EVTs that come from all over the country for a week-long training academy. And the last day of that is all pump testing. And so we've had the opportunity to have our trailer up at the Fire Mechanics Academy and to be an adjunct instructor, and to help those other EVTs, other departments, to understand the pump test process, how the pump works, why the gauges are doing what they're doing, and that sort of thing. And so it ends up being just a day long of pumping just truck after truck after truck. And that's everything from 2,000 gallon a minute tower ladders that we have in the metro area to what you saw there in that last picture was one of the state of Colorado's Type 3 wildland engines, which is a 500 gallon a minute pump. So a little bit of everything. We kind of run the gamut from new to old as well. A lot of the departments regionally, smaller departments that don't have their own fleet, they don't have their own maintenance. A lot of those departments actually use this opportunity. We pump test their trucks as a teaching tool, and then they get the benefits of having a fresh pump test, an annual pump test for that year. So that's one aspect of training that we have used it for. We have also used it internally as a tool for engineer promotional process training, and not only for training of those acting engineers or those who want to be qualified to be acting engineers, but we've also used it in the past for the promotional process. For those in the fire service, you know that for years when you're doing that type of training, and you have someone in a promotional process where you're flowing water off of a tank first, and then hooking to a hydrogen source, and then flowing 1, 2, 3 lines as you continue on in that evolution. In days past, you used to run hose lines out to take your pick: cars, propane tanks, sheds, whatever you could tie a hose line to, or you had to have someone standing there manning that hose line at all times. The draft commander takes all of that out of it. And even if we're not drafting out of it at that particular time, even if we're from a pressurized water source, we can run all of our hose lines into the draft commander, and it basically becomes a big catch basin for us that we can either catch that water and save it for later, or in some of those instances, some of that water does run over as you're doing a promotional process. But it just makes everything safer. You don't have folks out there holding on to lines. You're not paying overtime for that type of thing now, and all of the lines are there. It also makes it nice because one of the things that we've found is, as we do engineer training, whether it's a promotional process or training for actors, or if it's just ongoing like quarterly training for engineers, what we've also found is that sometimes what you think that you're pumping at the panel may not necessarily be what you're pumping at the end of that nozzle. So some of the things that we have found is is by putting the gauge adapter right there in the nozzle. Of course, in the nozzle testing kits that you can purchase with your Draft Commander, it comes with some of those. But what that really translates to is we found value in the engineer setting up his truck, flowing all his lines. He's happy with what he's doing according to the pump panel. Let's go look at those gauges now on the nozzle side and see if you're actually pumping what you think you're pumping. And that's been an eye opener to many, that especially when you start getting into high flow, low friction hose, sometimes our pump charts aren't as accurate as they may have been a few years ago. And so that's been a valuable tool in training for us as well.
It's found a home within your organization, and you use it regularly, not only for the testing, but for training, verifying. I mean, this is no longer an item. This is an asset to your department.
Yeah, very true. And that's what I said, when you're considering the cost of one, like I said, it's not cheap. It's a piece of apparatus. This is what you're buying. But it is an investment in your apparatus and in your fleet maintenance program. It's an investment in your training program as well.
One of the aspects of the Draft Commander is that it's mobile. How has that helped Castle Rock?
One of the advantages to that is we can go either to the fire station and pump at the fire station. We do that from time to time. We also pump here at the shop from time to time. We also pump at our fire training center from time to time, just depending on what is the best location at the time to pump at, really, is what the reality of that is. The advantage, though, of the Draft Commander being a total mobile platform is that all the suction hose, all the discharge hose, everything is on the trailer. So we don't have to take things with us. We don't have to take extra stuff with us. We can roll up to the station, hook to a hydrant, fill the Draft Commander, and start pumping trucks. Another advantage of that is that because all the hose comes off of the Draft Commander, heaven forbid we were to have the big one, if it were, we could disconnect our lines, and in theory, the truck could go right back into service off of the pump pit without ever being slowed down. We wouldn't have to reload hose onto the truck. Wouldn't have to reload hard suction onto the truck. So that's been an advantage for us internally. In addition to that, though, we have over the last year, we have also pumped regionally for other departments around us. One of the reasons we did that is obviously we know 2020, I think we would all agree is the year with the asterisks attached to it now because of COVID and the things that happened with that. Early on in March, when the shutdowns here in Colorado started happening, one of the things that took place here for us as Castle Rock Fire and for the town of Castle Rock is our budgets were clamped down on. So things that we hadn't spent, they were budgeted, but we hadn't spent yet. That was all put on hold because everybody was kind of holding their breath as to what this shutdown and what COVID was going to do to all of our budgets in the future. So when that started happening, by about June of last year, we were done with our pump testing internally. All of our trucks were completed. So at that point, then the trailer was either going to sit or it was going to be used here and there for training. I approached our fire chief and asked him his thoughts on if we offered out pump testing to the surrounding departments around us, because obviously I felt like we weren't the only ones feeling this budget crunch or knowing what was going to happen with budgets from here on out. So what we did last year was we offered to 7 other departments to come out and do their annual pump testing for them. And we did that at no charge. We hauled the Draft Commander out to their location, which kept them from taking trucks out of service, having personnel to drive trucks to us. We pump tested trucks all day long. Some of those departments were, a couple, 2 or 3 trucks. Others were upwards of 7 trucks that we pumped that day. And generally, we were able to go out to their location, set up, pump all of their trucks that single day. And what they would do is they would just bring and rotate on-duty trucks into us. as we got done with one, they would have the next one follow them in, and that truck would go back into service. So the mobility not only helps us here internally, but we were able to expand that and help others around us as well.
I want to thank you today for your time. I want to thank Castle Rock Fire Department for allowing you to take time out of your schedule today to talk with us. And again, thank you for your service.
Thank you, Steve. It's been a pleasure being here.